Hey everybody, welcome to biology. Congratulations, you have finished physics and you are now in your final unit of Science 10. So let's get started. So today I'm just going to remind you of what biology is, what you have done in past grades, and what we'll be doing this year. And then we're going to go into a little bit of cell review. So biology is the study of living things. Biologists might study anything from plants and fungi to animals to bacteria. My Bachelor of Science is in biology, and it's taken me all over the world. I have volunteered with a cheetah genetic project, so that's me in the top there holding a baby cheetah in South Africa. I've done some bat research, so there's me in the bottom putting a little tag on a bat's wing. People study the ocean, marine biology, insects, and genetics, all kinds of really cool stuff. So this is, in my opinion, a really interesting branch of science. In grade 8, you guys would have learned about what makes something alive, and part of that is being made up of cells. So then you would have talked about what a cell is, what the different organelles are that make up a cell and what they do. In grade 9, you would have talked about cell division. So it's mitosis and meiosis. Meiosis is going to be relevant for this year because it's the creation of sperm and eggs. Reproduction, you also would have talked about in grade 9, so sexual and asexual. And then this year in grade 10, we're going to do a little cell review, so that's today. And then we're going to do some DNA review and go more in depth into what DNA is and how it works. And then we're going to talk a lot about genetics and inheritance. So how do you get traits from your parents? How is DNA passed down? So you've got a choice here. If you want to keep watching this video, I'm going to go through cells and the different organelles, and I'll talk about them. I'm also posting this on the Google Classroom, this Google slide, with speaker notes, essentially with what I'm going to say here. So if you would rather listen, just keep following along. If you would rather just read it, feel free to just exit out of here and head to the Google Classroom and do that. So cells are the smallest structural unit of an organism. You are made up of systems like the circulatory system or the nervous system. Those systems have organs within them. So the circulatory system has, organs like the heart. Those organs are then made up of specialized tissues, which are made up of cells. So cells are really specialized to where they are in the body and what they're doing. Like your brain cells are going to look very different from the cells in your heart. So we're going to go through a pretty generic cell just so that we can get an idea of what the organelles do. But just so you know, cells do look very different depending on where they are in your body. Most animals and plants are made up of trillions of cells, but there are some things like bacteria that are actually only one cell. So we're labeling an animal cell here. So that's what we're going through. What we've done is taken a cell and essentially cut it in half and taken the top off just so that we can see what's inside of it. So normally the cell membrane would go all the way around here. So the cell membrane, it's a layer on the outside of the cell and it is going to hold everything in. We call it selectively permeable because it's really specific about what it lets in and out of the cell. So it's only going to let certain compounds move in and out of the cell at certain times and in certain concentrations. So it's very selective, which is a good thing. The cytoplasm is kind of like a goop that everything is suspended in. So all of the organelles are suspended in the cytoplasm, moving through the cytoplasm, and a lot of chemical reactions happen there. Cytoskeleton, cyto means cell, so cytoskeleton literally translates to cell skeleton, and the cytoskeleton provides structure to the cell. We've got DNA, the nucleolus, and the nucleus up here. So DNA, we're going to get more in depth with what DNA is later, but for now I want you guys to think of it as like the blueprint for you. Sometimes I think of it as having recipes on it. So those recipes we call genes, and those recipes are for proteins in your body. So for example, one protein that you'll you'll have a recipe or a gene for on your DNA is melanin. And melanin is what actually gives your hair and your skin color. So you have this gene for melanin. It's read and turned into a protein that goes into your body. So DNA contains all the information for the different things that are going to make you you. The nucleus contains the DNA. You can see these little circles on the nucleus here. Those are called nuclear pores. So kind of like the cell membrane, the nucleus is only going to let certain things move in and out of it. DNA is not able to leave the nucleus. The nucleolus, this little circle in the middle here, it's responsible for making ribosomes. So if DNA has recipes, those genes, the ribosomes are like the chefs that read those genes and turn them into a protein. Now, the ribosomes can actually leave the nucleus through those nuclear pores, and we usually find them on the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or rough ER for short. So the rough ER, we call it the site of protein synthesis. Protein synthesis is where a gene is actually read and turned into a protein. So if we go back to the DNA, we have a gene. A copy of that gene is made, and then that copy can leave the nucleus, goes to the rough ER, where a ribosome reads it and turns it into a protein. So that's the protein synthesis part. We have the smooth ER, or smooth endoplasmic reticulum, right next to the rough ER there. So how we're going to tell these apart on a diagram is, if you look at the smooth ER, it does not have any ribosomes on it. The smooth ER has got a different function. So it does produce hormones for your body and some other compounds as well. It also is very important in detoxification. So the smooth ER breaks down toxins and waste products, and you actually have a lot of smooth ER in the cells that are in your liver because it's responsible for a lot of the detox that goes on in your body. Vesicles are what actually move things around through the cell. So you've got a protein made in the rough ER, it is going to go into a vesicle and then go wherever it needs to go, either within the cell still or leaving the cell. Lysosomes, these are really cool. So lysosomes actually have digestive enzymes in them that can kill parts of the cell. So that might sound like a bad thing, but it's actually really important. Sometimes an organelle in a cell is just old, worn out, we need to just get rid of it and replace it. So the lysosome can go and it can release these digestive enzymes and get rid of that organelle for us. Sometimes cells also just need to be killed. We just need to kill a cell, and the lysosomes can just burst, release these digestive enzymes, and kill the cell. We call cell death apoptosis, and it's actually really important. So an example of a time that we need cell death to happen is actually while we're developing. So your hand, you don't actually start off with separate fingers. You start off with like a paddle hand. And then what happens in the uterus is there's a chemical released, a series of chemicals, and what that tells your cells to do is die in specific places. So the cells that were right here are going to die, and these cells are going to die, and the cells that were in here are going to die, and eventually you're going to end up with separate fingers because the cells that were connecting them have been killed. So you would still have a paddle, and if it weren't for cell death, then lysosomes. All right. Next up, the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus is kind of like the packaging and processing facility of our cell. So it packages proteins and puts kind of finishing touches on them. So we have got our genes from our DNA being read by a ribosome in the rough ER, turned into a protein, and then often those are going to travel in a vesicle to the Golgi apparatus, where some finishing touches will be put on them, and then they'll be sent off into the cell or out of the cell to do whatever their function is. Mitochondria, so down here, this little peanut kind of shaped thing, The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. You guys have probably heard that 1,000 times in grade 8 and 9. So it produces energy for the cell in the form of a chemical called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, we often call it. So ATP, when it's broken down, it releases energy. So the mitochondria produces that, and that's how we get energies for our cells, and therefore for our bodies. The mitochondria also has another kind of cool thing about it. Most of your DNA is in the nucleus, but your mitochondria has a little bit of DNA in it. And the interesting thing about that DNA is you get mitochondria from the egg cell, not from the sperm that fertilizes that egg. So you've actually got a little bit more DNA from your biological mother than from your biological father. Not much, but a little bit. Fun fact. And then we've got centrioles up here. So centrioles, they're important in cell division. So when your cells divide, you guys might remember this from last year, you've got 2 copies of each chromosome, and you need to pull those apart to opposite ends of the cell so that when the cell splits into 2, you've got the same amount and type of DNA in both cells. So centrioles very important for cell division. All right, so that's all of the organelles and organelle information that you need to know. There is a worksheet in the Google Classroom on cells where you're filling out the information about these different organelles and labeling them on a diagram. There's also a optional bonus project that you can do on cell differentiation. So that just means like how cells become different things in your body, and what's different about a neuron, a brain cell, than a cell in your liver, or a cell in your heart, or a cell in your bones. So you're welcome to do that if you'd like. There's a few more slides on here that will help you out with that. And then we're going to move into DNA next. So good luck with the cell, and I will see you guys in the DNA lesson. Bye.